Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio. Today I'm sharing with you days 4, 5, and 6 of my Artist Trading Card a Day challenge. This challenge is all the month of June 2021, brought to you by Art Joy of Sharing Art Community on Facebook. Anybody can participate in this. You, of course, can come and join our group if you haven't yet. It's a great, safe place for sharing your art. But if you haven't joined, you can still play along with this challenge by making an artist trading card, which is 3.5 by 2.5 inches, each day in the month of June, and then posting it anywhere on social media using the hashtag, that's that little number symbol, ATCAD2021. That's Artist Trading Card a Day in 2021. So I hope you're playing along. I know lots of people are. This is a popular challenge, so there's lots to see out there. And of course, you can find other people's art and videos and things by searching that same hashtag. You'll come up with lots of different things to see. So it's a lot of fun. For today's artist trading cards, I'm using our Pick a Stick challenge, which is something else from the Art Joy of Sharing group that we post each month. It is a randomly drawn one-word prompt challenge. And usually we have 10 prompts total. This time there's only 5 prompts total, 1 color, 1 wild card, and 3 prompts, because an ATC is a lot smaller than something like an art journal page. So we have less prompts. So I made 2 of them. Instead of just having one, I made 2 ATC challenges with Pick a Stick for this month in the group. And that's just something we always have. So that's what I'm doing in this video. So for the first one, the color was cerulean blue. I love saying that, cerulean blue. It's a great word, name, whatever. And I used some distress inks. I have those little tiny ones that are 1 inch by 1 inch square, and I smushed them down onto my silicone mat and then picked them up using my Bristol card. Picked up the ink after spritzing it, and you do it for multiple applications. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, dry it, maybe do it some more. You can, I splattered some just plain water on there and let it make like little droplets until I had an interesting background in the cerulean blue range. And then the first prompt on the list was oval. So I used an oval shaped stencil with some light yellow acrylic paint and made kind of like an oval shaped moon on my night sky. And yeah, okay, moons aren't oval shaped, but by the time I get all the other stuff on there, you can't really tell that it's an oval anymore. So they're just kind of some shiny color in the background, as if the moon is shining. Then I noticed that the wild card was bird, and that prompt 2 was quirky. And so I thought, well, I will draw a little quirky bird and attach that to my card. So I'm just using a piece of nothing paper. I wished I would have used a lightweight watercolor paper for this instead, but it's paper from the printer that I just had on my desk from doing gel printing. Lightweight paper. And I drew a little weird bird, and then I'm watercoloring it using this Koi watercolor travel set. I like this set because it has pretty good pigment load, and it's portable, it's small, and I can take it with me places. And that's what it's designed for, so it's good for that. Maybe not the highest quality, most super whammy watercolor, but really useful for traveling and for, just having something on your desk that you can grab really easily. And I'm using a Zen brush from Royal and Langnickel, Royal and Langnickel, I think it is. Zen watercolor brush. Then I'm going to give this a good dry and add some illustration lines, first with my Stabilo All pencil in black, and then after that I'm going to use an acrylic paint pen, a black one and a white one. I'm blending this a little bit with my watercolor brush where I put the black Stabilo, and then once that's dry I'll add my acrylic paint pens. I'm going to put a little swoop on his head like a quail I ended up doing that after the fact because I thought it made him look even more cute and quirky. And of course, here in Arizona, I have a lot of quails running around. There, a couple weeks ago, was one that had just one baby, but there was like a pair of quails, and the dad would fly onto the post of the backyard fence, and then the mom would come to the gate with the little baby just trailing. I haven't seen him for a while, so I guess if I do see him again, that quail is probably going to be a teenager at that point. But just haven't seen him for some reason. I'm not sure why. They like to come to the pool and drink the water out of the little waterfall thing in the pool. We have a lot of birds that do that. So once my little funny bird is done, I'm going to cut him out and attach him using a Yoo-Hoo glue stick to my background. I did use a couple of alcohol markers and draw kind of a branch because I knew I was going to put a bird in a nest on there. I also have some die cut that was just had these little like lines, and I wanted to use that as making kind of a dimensional looking nest for him to sit in because, you know, birds like nesting. I guess it's actually probably a she if it's sitting on a nest. But I colored those also with different distress inks because it was just a white, cut out of white. You know, if you cut all your dyes out of white paper, then you can color them whatever you want. And you can own a lot less bits of dyes if you've cut them out of white paper than if you've like tried to cut something out of every single color cardstock you have. You could go a little bit loopy that way. So I'm just tearing up this little die cut lines and gluing them down with my Yoo-Hoo glue stick to make this little nest for my birdie to sit in the tree with the moon behind it. I think it's pretty cute. I like it. And it took me a minute to glue these down. They didn't want to stick, and I kept pressing them down. I probably should have used some other type of glue because it started to get quite dimensional as they're stacking onto each other. Then I used that Stabilo All pencil again just to add in some little shadows and shade, and you know, it wouldn't be flat. You'd want it to be very visually dimensional as well. So a little bit of Stabilo just on there, in between and under, and blend it with a little bit of the water brush and maybe a little bit out around. If I didn't cut perfectly, I would like to just kind of, you know, make sure there's not any white bits along the edge where I did a bad job of cutting. So there's day number 4, my little bird in a nest using the Pick a Stick challenge from Archer Sharing. So the other challenge had black as the color, and I started out with a card that was cut from a piece of packaging. Like this was an envelope that, you know, like one of those hard mailer envelopes. Somebody sent me something in, and it was hard enough that I felt like you could do an ATC out of it. You can cut them out of watercolor paper. You can cut them out of Bristol. You can cut them out of, you know, packaging like this. You can buy them pre-cut. All kinds of different types of paper pre-cut. But when I'm using this kind of post-consumer type paper, I like to gesso it because it's very porous and it will just suck up any type of paint or ink that you put on it, so much so that it dulls it down a little bit and you lose your color. So I like to gesso it. So this time, since the color was black already, that was the prompt, I put black gesso on. And then I took one of these ATC stencils from Stencil Girl. They have a lot of different designers making these, and they're 9 little designs on one large piece. So you get 9 ATC size designs. And I thought since the prompt was pen, I would use my white paint pen. This is a Posca fine tip to draw around the stencil. That's not something I do very often. Usually I paint in through a stencil, not using the lines as a design. So I thought that might be kind of interesting. Unfortunately, the pen was so juicy and I was pressing so hard that I did get some of the paint smooshing under the stencil. Way to avoid that would be to use some Pixie spray. That's the only one I've really stencil adhesive I've ever really found that I like, but it turns it kind of into a post-it note type situation where the stencil would stick down and you wouldn't get any seepage. I thought I could just do it by hand. I didn't think that it would seep like that. So I did touch it up a little bit with my black Posca pen where there was splooging. And then I also wanted to connect some of the places where there's bridges on the stencil. So I did that as well with the white. Then the next prompt was trowel. And so I wanted to use my little palette knife, the small one that's shaped like a trowel, that kind of diamondy shape, to put on some paste of some sort. I decided to use this Gina K Designs glitter paste. I love this stuff because the glitter just stays in the paste and doesn't come off or flake off or get on anything, because you know glitter can be pretty insidious like that. So I just taped off the areas that I didn't want the glitter paste to go on the stencil, and then I put it through the trowel and made like a dimensional, shiny, glittery moon behind this tree shape. Then I got some watercolor that's more like a gouache. You know, a gouache is more like an opaque watercolor. This is made by Sakura. It's Japanese watercolors. And I painted in the branches and the leaves. Why did I use watercolor? Well, the next prompt is bleach, and I have some household bleach, and I wanted something that I could bleach out to put the highlights on. And gesso doesn't bleach, acrylic paint doesn't bleach, this glitter paste doesn't bleach. So I needed something that would bleach out a little bit. So using the watercolor, I figured would work the best. Also, I used the gouache type watercolor because it's more opaque and I could paint over the black. Because also watercolor often is very translucent and you wouldn't see it on black, right? So I made decisions based on those factors. So I know it's hard to see, but I added some highlights by bleaching out the watercolor. It's really hard to see. Even in the close-up, it's really hard to see. But it did work. It wasn't very dramatic. I decided I needed something in the background because it just seemed really plain. So I took another one of the stencils in this same watercolor set that's Japanese watercolors. It has some metallics in it. And I used one of the metallic golds. There's actually two metallic golds. I guess maybe one of them is bronze, one of them is gold, and then there's a silver, and then there's kind of like a pearly white color. Pretty interesting in a watercolor set. And I just added some splotchy stuff in the background to kind of fill in everything. Doing a little bit of touch up because, of course, the watercolor went over the white lines that I had traced. There's always touch up, right? You think you're done, and then you realize that there's touch up every single time. Totally happens to me. So I'm just touching up a few areas, making sure those white lines are showing all around. I really like the glitter paste. It's so pretty. I'm just holding the card up to myself, just twisting it back and forth and looking at the sparkly glitter. I love glitter. I don't like glitter, if you know what I mean. It's like you got to have something that's containing it or else it just gets everywhere. So I did put a little sticker on there. It says "In My Dreams." It's from Tim Holtz sticker set. And that one was done. So there you have it. Can you see where the bleach just added a few little highlights here and there on the watercolor? I know it's hard to see. So for the next one, I decided I would use the same pick a stick challenge prompts with the black, but do it completely different. Like each time you use these prompts, you could use these prompts over and over and they would still, everything would come out different, right? So I started with black and pen, and I'm using my Pentel Pocket Brush India Ink paint pen. Love this pen. Every time I use it, I say to myself, man, I love this pen. It's so awesome. Why don't I use it every day? Which I do use it quite a bit. I just replaced the little cartridges, you know, has like a little cartridge thing inside of it that holds the ink. Just replaced that recently. You can just buy just the replacement. You don't have to buy the whole pen over. So then the next prompt after pen was trowel again. So I'm using some golden molding paste with my trowel and just doing some free form texture in different places on the card and giving that a really hard dry, even so much that it puffs up a little bit. That texture stuff will start to bubble and it makes even more texture. Then I got back out that same koi watercolors and I'm doing some drippy drippies. So I'm getting my big watercolor brush that holds a lot of water in the ferrule and really getting a lot of watercolor paint on there and then just kind of squishing it along the edge of the card and then letting it drip and maybe even adding a little bit of water to get it more, runny so that it will run over the texture, fill in the cracks, run all around. And then I'm going to give that a good dry. So then the wild card was die cut, and so I decided to grab a couple of these swirly die cuts that I have cut previously and put those on in a couple different places. And I'm using my glue sponge this time to glue them down. Sometimes die cuts are kind of bratty, and if you try to put your glue stick over them, you drag, and then the die cut, one piece of it will lift up and want to tear, so I used the glue sponge instead. Putting a little bit of ink around the edges. I did that on all the cards. I like to have ink around the edges, usually black. It gives a frame, and I like that look, so that's a personal choice. So then I decided that those looked kind of grungy and gross because they were dirty. The die cuts were dirty. So I decided to color them with some of the black watercolor paint and just give them kind of like a splotchy look, a little bit textury look with watercolor paint. And then I think after that I added some mark making stuff with white. I hope you guys are enjoying this video, and if you are, please remember to give it a thumbs up, of course a thumbs up. Leave a comment or question in the comment section below. I'll be sure to answer you. You can also share this. You can pin it and all those different things. You can also, of course, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I do plan on having a big giveaway when I hit 20,000 subscribers. So help us out by subscribing and turning on your notification bells. That helps out. So yeah, I've got my Posca pen back out again. That's acrylic paint, an opaque acrylic paint in a fine tip marker, which I just love. This is one of my favorite products. And I'm doing some dots. I'm doing some dashes. I'm doing maybe some lines along the edges of the die cuts just to add a little bit of something, something, like you do. Makes it a little bit more interesting when you mark make. I even thought about doing some fingerprints, but I decided the card was too tiny for that. So I just did all pen work. I did want to touch up there a little bit, so I opened my watercolors back up just because I'd kind of put white where I didn't want it. I wanted more red up there. And I put a sticker on that says "Be kind." This is an abstract. Some people were saying they see a face in it. It's an abstract. Of course, once you see the face, you can't stop seeing it. But it's supposed to be abstract. So a little bit of ink around the edges, and I was done with number 6. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.